Going all in with Glenn Fleishman about Take Control books, liquid glass, and public betas. Part 2. This is MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by Clean My Mac and the new Cloud Cleanup feature. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use the code MacVoices20 for 20% off at cleanmy.com/MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Incogni. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/Chuck and use the code Chuck at checkout. Glenn, I have to ask, with all the features we're talking about and how do you track them? I have this vision of you in the basement with, one of those murder boards or crime boards, with the threads going from here to here and, little Post-its stuck up. How do you keep track of it all?
Oh gosh, it's well beyond anyone's ability. I can't imagine how many people at Apple it takes for them to track features internally. There must be some digital system. I mean, I don't even know how they do project management for the scope of anything, even a single app at Apple. So it's clearly beyond my capabilities. The good news is we have the skeletons of our books. So that sounds gross, but it's true. is most of our books are revisions at this point. We occasionally introduce a new one, or we'll, as I say, where we used to have iPad and iOS, or sort of was iPhone and iPad networking or security and privacy, right? And that got so big that we broke it up into a bunch of different books because it was just, no one's going to read a 350-page book at this point and all this topics in it. So when I start fresh, the new books we're doing are typically not feature-based, they're topic-based. So our older books that we revise, we're kind of saying, all right, what is already here? I mean, I think my hardest is probably the security book. Again, I have to look up the title because I have too many books. Take Control of Securing Your Apple Devices. So in the last release, last fall 2024, we combined it. So it's iPhone, iPad, and Mac because we'd found again, it was originally a Mac security book. Joe had written it years ago. It had laid fallow. I revised it. And then we thought, actually the features are now for many things are common. And there's some Mac specific stuff we'll call out like File Vault, which I'm footnoting, putting a footnote in my head here about a File Vault change. That's interesting. But in that case, it was, okay, I need to find every security feature. So I'm just going to comb through. I'm going to look through all the things we have and comb through it. Last year, I wrote a new book called Take Control, or it's not Take Control. It's called Keep Safe Using Mobile Tech, because I thought Apple had continued to add all of these safety features. I think we talked about it when it came out. I feel like I just felt like Apple had suddenly kind of combined a lot of things like between safety check, and there's a way that you can I've even blanked on the feature name because it turned out people are not using it as much as I wish they would. It's the feature that lets you check in with people, so you can oh gosh, it's so funny, I can't remember the actual feature name. It's a feature that lets you check in with other people so that you can send them your location or where you intend to go. And you have kind of a safety buddy. But then all these emergency SOS features, other things. So I thought, well, the time is, Joe and I talked about it. We'll have a book called Keep Safe, and it'll cover Google and Android Wear and Apple products and anything you find in Mac and Windows that's related to it. And that was very topic based. Like let's comb through. So I'm combing through Google or Android technical documentation. I'm looking at Android phone, looking at my phone. What are things that fall into that category? I think if I were to start from scratch, if you said, hey, can you write a book tomorrow that's on topic X that needs to cover this? I don't know how I'd find all the features. And then how would I track them? I think I'm just lucky enough that the books that are the hardest, especially the security book, I think, because it's been written already, revising it lets us stay abreast of the features. Saying that, I think there's a couple of security features I need to add into a minor revision because I missed them. Nothing significant enough to do like a major update, but just little things like, oh yeah, that's right. I need to make sure that's in the next release because it's a little subtlety. So I don't know if that answers the question well enough. It's just I don't have a master list. My books are kind of my master list, and I use them to figure out where I need to tack to or add more coverage of.
I looked it up. It is the check-in feature. So
check-in, such an easy name.
Yeah.
That's when I think Apple introduced it, and I think it's, excuse me, dry throat. I think Apple introduced it and kind of forgot how important it was, because if you're in a situation where you're just nervous, you're like, I'm in a funny city, I'm traveling. I mean, I think it's honestly a feature aimed at people who are do not male identified, like anybody who, and not that men are always feel secure either, but anytime you think I could be in a situation in which I'm concerned that somebody knows whether or not I got to my destination, or even the kind of thing, you're dating somebody and they're on their way home and you say, let me know when you got home. They could do this check-in thing. And the nice part is, the check-in feature allows both exact location and kind of general location. So if you don't want to give someone your address, but they know kind of generally where you live anyway, for safety. So it's got a lot of safety, a lot of subtlety and nuance about it. And I think parents were like, oh, we're sending you back to college. Let us know when you get there. You're taking a cab across town, or you're doing a walk in an area and you want someone, I'm planning to walk to this cafe at the top of this mountain ridge, and you don't get there. It gives you the negative information. The person is your safety buddy knows that you didn't arrive at the destination. And it will give you information only in that scenario, where then you, as the safety buddy, could make a call, could call 911, could call your friend, could escalate things if necessary. I think it's an amazing feature, and I continue to be shocked that Apple doesn't promote it, because it is unique to them. No one's built that out yet.
We've talked about the iPad, we've talked about the Mac a lot. We really haven't touched on the iPhone and the enhancements, not just with liquid glass, but also the hardware enhancements and all. How do you feel about where the iPhone's going, and will we see a foldable iPhone?
Oh, that's terrific. I was not going to buy a new iPhone. This is the usual thing. Everyone tells you this every year, right? You're like, hey, you get a new iPhone? And they say, well, I wasn't going to get one. And then, because I had a perfectly good, I think I had an iPhone 15 Pro, worked fine. It's under Apple Care Plus, so if something goes wrong, I can pay $0 to $99 or whatever to fix it. And then I saw the camera features were so improved, and there were a few things I wanted to test. And I thought, all right, I've paid off this phone, and I checked with Apple's trade-in, and they're willing to give me, I think it was it $400 or something? It was a ridiculous amount for the trade-in. So I thought, they're actually discounting my purchase so heavily, and I owe nothing on it. So I did in fact go and then buy an iPhone 17 Pro. It is, it's kind of that checking in on the state of the art. I think it's a great phone. I think the camera is better. I think visual intelligence is the weirdest feature. I don't know why it exists. It feels like they don't know what to do yet. So they had to stick something in as a placeholder that's kind of dopey and useless. I don't like the dedicated, I don't know what you call it, the camera button or something, or that weird small button. They already added the other button that I can't remember the name of either, the control button. That's the multi-control button that you could set. So I showed it to my wife and I said, look at this. Remember when Apple had like a home button and volume up and down? Well, now you got volume up and down, the control button, the side button, the camera control button. I'm like, it just feels like too much. Like, I don't need that. I've already got all these other options. So I think when I start complaining about the profusion of buttons, it means maybe something's not fantastic with the hardware. I think they have this stagnation problem, that how do you improve on something that's already kind of the best thing? And the cameras are the primary way, the speed of the phone, some other features. That's it too. I don't need a foldable phone. I don't think the case has been made for almost all of history for a device that folds, where the screen isn't just half of the fold, the other is the keyboard. I don't see people who have some of the working Samsung and other models that were perfected enough, that do work most of the time and don't break all the time. I don't see those people telling me why there's a great reason to have a folding device with a bigger screen. It's kind of like, if I'm carrying something of a certain size, I should just have an iPad, like, instead of an iPhone. So that, I question the reason, just as I did and still do for the Vision Pro, why a device that nobody's asking for, and when you release it doesn't seem to fill a need. Folding phones did not take over the top end of the market. The top end of the market on the Android world are still very, very good phones that are feature parity, competitive with the best iPhones. So if it was such a great idea, I would think you'd see the top end of the Android market be dominated, at least dollar-wise, if not unit-wise, by foldable phones, and it hasn't happened. So That's my 15 and a half cents. I think they kind of there's like a stagnation, but what do you do when you stagnate? You invent a new kind of thing. Does Apple have a direction to go? I don't know that they do, except for incremental improvement, which is not what they want to do forever. They want to do that for years at a time, reap the rewards. But at some point they want to leap. And so they might release, we hear all these rumors now, they've got one a foldable phone, because they might say, well, we waited this long because we needed something that actually worked and we didn't have to spend, 70% of the purchase price on repairs for you. Have it in the shop. I mean, what is it? The Alfa Romeo? What's the car that I had a theater teacher in high school. He had a little sports car, and I swear it was in the shop like 70% of the time. It wasn't Alfa Romeo, but whatever it was just hilarious. Super high performance, super low availability time. And that's what I think Apple would absolutely want to avoid with a folding phone.
Yeah, I'm going to be interesting. I can appreciate the look. We started with foldable phones,
Yeah.
but that was to keep them small and be able to put them in our pockets. And the people
Right.
that were carrying the candy bar phones, still remember the term. We're kind of like,
yeah.
oh, you guys aren't cool. Then the iPhone came, and it changed everything. I see the benefits of a larger screen, but I'm like you. I feel like, okay, if I cannot carry an iPad, I can carry an iPad Mini. It'd be interesting if they took the iPad Mini and put a phone into it, but maybe that would just be crazy too. I don't know.
Although I got to ask you, what's the difference between the phone app on an iPad Mini with cellular and an iPad Mini that's a phone? I am not sure there's much of a difference once you have the phone app. I mean, you have to still have your iPhone. It has to be turned on, and I think just you have to be on a Wi-Fi network, right? So you can go somewhere and make phone calls without your iPhone, but you have to own one. So I guess that's the leap, right? You'd want an iPhone Mini that didn't require owning an iPhone in order to have a real phone number attached to it that you could use independently.
I will confess to you, I didn't know that there was a phone app for the iPad Mini.
The iPad. This is the whole thing. iPad has a full-fledged phone app as of iPadOS 26. Would I know this if I hadn't written a book about it? But the phone app, it works. It's a little bit like a combination of the FaceTime audio and the phone app on the iPhone. So the iPhone's phone app is now, it's transmogrified, right? It's got the new interface, and you can do spam filtering and call screening and all that stuff. The iPad and Mac phone apps are almost feature compatible with them, but they don't turn your device into a phone. You still have to have an iPhone to make phone calls. The iPhone remains kind of the hub of your phone life, but you can use almost every other feature in the phone app, including voicemail, and place phone calls through it. So you don't use the FaceTime app like you used to in iOS or iPadOS 18, but because you still have to have a phone, an iPad with iPadOS 26. The phone app is still essentially tethered to an iPhone, but the iPhone doesn't have to be near you. It has to be on a Wi-Fi network somewhere. So if you're off with your iPad and you want to make a phone call, you still have to have an iPhone turned on somewhere. So that is, to me, the remaining piece, is that if you wanted, you'd have to, so you can have an iPad cellular model, but it still won't make phone calls. I mean, then you could do something like you can use third-party apps that let you make phone calls and whatever, but it's still not like having a cell phone. So I wonder if that's the unbridgeable gap for Apple. If they don't want to, if they've made an iPad Mini or just made iPads that could act as freestanding phones, do they not want to do that because they want to still sell iPhones? Because you kind of buy an iPhone, you buy an iPad to complement your iPhone, but it's a very thin line now.
First of all, I didn't know that. You've taught me something. Second thing is, I wonder if it's a nod to the cell carriers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, the carriers still get money if you have an iPad cellular, but maybe not in the same way as having. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Apple Watch, where the Apple Watch can sort of be used independently, but you really need an iPhone to do a lot of stuff with it. I mean, I don't know, if you didn't have an iPhone, how would you manage your Apple Watch? You can't really. I mean, you could set it up, but you'd have to eventually to update it and all the things. And you can make phone calls. I've occasionally had my Apple Watch ring, and I've answered on it, and I'm like, I don't even know how to talk on I can do a phone call on my watch. I think I've done it a couple of times, but I sort of forget how it works if you don't have earbuds in and whatever. So it's that adjuncty thing, is the iPhone is the driver of their sales. I also wonder if the iPad, I don't know if it has lower margins. It would be hard to imagine based on Apple's reporting, but I think they make a lot of money from iPhones. So they don't have a motivation yet, but maybe if they felt people were asking for it and they could do a deal with carriers, the iPhone or the iPad could be a form of iPhone. But I don't know. I just wonder if that would, I got to think there's a lot of iPhones out there because people need them to drive parts of their other devices.
It's an interesting point. And I hadn't even thought about the fact that I use my phone to manage my watch.
Yeah, it's kind of seamless, right? Except when you're doing, because you can do a lot of stuff from the watch, but then you're like, oh, I want to, I don't know, install Faces. It's much easier from the phone. I need to do the software update. Dealing with apps like app notifications. There's a bunch of stuff you kind of have to use the watch app on the phone for, but you don't have to. I touch it, once a month or something. It's very rare. And when I'm doing the beta cycles, I'm using it a lot more because I've got to load the betas through the phone onto the watch. But it's sort of seamless to the point that you forget, but it really is tethered to your phone.
Yeah. Interesting. Welcome to the future of data privacy with Increment. In today's tech-driven world, protecting your personal information from data brokers is more crucial than ever. Increment is here to ensure your data remains private and secure. This service is designed to help you protect your personal data from data brokers who collect, aggregate, and sell it. Using Increment feels like finally reclaiming your personal space, but online. No more random calls, no more data breaches, just peace. Ever Googled yourself and found your address, phone number, or even your relatives posted online? That's thanks to people search sites. They sell detailed profiles of millions of Americans to anyone, scammers, employers, stalkers. And while these sites claim they don't use this data to harass or harm people, the reality is that you can't stop dodgy people from taking advantage of it. Now, you do have the right to remove this information yourself, but to put it simply, it would be virtually impossible. It would take you hundreds of hours, and it might just be re-uploaded weeks later. Increment can automate this process for you. And now they've introduced something huge, custom data removals. With their new unlimited plan, you can copy and paste any link where your info shows up on sites beyond their usual list, and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Increment's privacy experts actually go in and handle the removal manually, even from the sites that are harder to deal with. It's like having a privacy SWAT team on speed dial. It's also completely risk-free. Increment offers a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with them removing your personal information off the internet. Live free from dangerous spam by using Increment. That's incogni.com/Chuck for 60% off their annual plans. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use the code Chuck. Again, that's incogni.com/Chuck and use the code Chuck at checkout. Thanks to Increment for supporting MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by Cloud Cleanup, part of Clean My Mac from MacPaw. Do you hate taking the trash out? Yeah, I do too. But the digital kind might be even worse. Every photo you shared, every file you uploaded, every forgotten document sitting on your iCloud or Google Drive, it all piles up. That's where Cloud Cleanup from MacPaw comes in. Cloud Cleanup is the smart way to clear out your digital clutter. It scans your connected cloud drives, like iCloud and Google Drive, and finds duplicates, outdated files, and space hogs you don't even remember saving. Then, with one click, you can clean them out safely and instantly. No hunting through endless folders or worrying about deleting the wrong thing. Think of it as Clean My Mac for your cloud. You'll get back gigabytes of storage, lower your cloud bills, and enjoy that same satisfying feeling of seeing everything tidy and organized. Plus, Cloud Cleanup is made by MacPaw, the same team behind the award-winning Clean My Mac, so you know your data is handled securely and your privacy is protected. So if your iCloud storage looks more like a junk drawer than a workspace, it's time to tidy up. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use the code MacVoices20 for 20% off at cleanmy.com/MacVoices. Again, cleanmy.com/MacVoices, clnmy.com/MacVoices, and the code MacVoices20 for 20% off. Cloud Cleanup from MacPaw, your digital fall cleaning made effortless. Thanks to MacPaw for supporting MacVoices. Glenn, you've been very generous with your time as you always are. Thank you so much. But I do want to make sure we
Oh,
take just a couple minutes here and update folks to all the other projects that you're involved in, because I don't know anyone who's involved in more projects than you are.
well, I'm having a great time. I'll tell you that is I'm living my best life in terms of with the sort of collapse of the journalism industry. We've seen it on a like news reporting, political, local news scale. Also true on the tech side. There still are plenty of tech reporters, but it feels like every day there's layoffs at organization. And as a freelancer, the market had really dried up during the pandemic. There were a couple good years in there, and then I thought, what am I doing with the rest of my life when the it's the usual problem. It's not getting paid enough. Have never been paid mostly enough relative to the work done, especially relative to say staff members of publications. And I have been writing books for quite a while, and I just have gotten back into print production. And starting back in 2017, I started to get back into some letterpress printing and research, and came out with a series of books and projects that did very well. And I thought, well, this is where half my life's going to be take control books, basically. And I'm writing for Six Colors. I'm doing a column that is titled by Jason Snell. Help me, Glenn, is the column because that's my role in life. He said, I think we should call it Help Me, Glenn. I'm like, that's great. That's what I'm doing. So let's do it. So that's kind of half my life is doing this kind of tech how-to stuff, which I love, and I get to interact with people, and people will tell me like, oh my God, thank you so much for writing this column, because this has been bothering me for 7 years and I didn't know how to fix it. Or they'll have some new thing that happens and I will immediately solve it for them. I'll tell you one very funny story quickly. There's a column up as we speak at Six Colors about this. My friend Larry needed some computing help, very sophisticated guy, and he's having problems he can't solve. So I'm like, sure, what can I do for you? And he was having a forwarding issue. It was kind of complicated with one of his email addresses. We figured it out and immediately deleted all of his email. I was like, oh no. So I solved the problem. Fortunately, there was a way to undelete at his mail host. We undeleted it, but it was one of these like, let's click that, and oh, their interface is bad, and we're not deleting the forwarding address. We're deleting the entire account with one click. So as I say, this host also had to restore your email with one click, so they make backups. And he had local time machine backups and all that. But anyway, so I tremendously helped Larry after he very calmly restored his email. We did solve his longstanding problem. But so on the other half of my life is kind of print and comics history. And so I did a book that I know you let me talk about a couple years ago, which is how comics were made, which I funded on Kickstarter, which is a history, a visually illustrated history of how newspaper comics were drawn and then went through this incredible industrial process to get printed from their origins mostly in the 1890s to the present day. And I got to talk to by phone and in person and through email with some of the living legends of cartooning like Gary Trudeau and Bill Watterson, Lynn Johnston, Bill Griffith. He let me come to his studio in Connecticut and talk to him in person, look through his personal archives. Some other cartoonists let me come up and like photograph them at work. And it was just a delightful book, and people responded to it. And Andrews McMeel Publishing, which is the syndicate and publisher for a lot of major cartoons like Peanuts and Doonesbury and Calvin and Hobbes, and For Better or For Worse, they bought the rights to the book for me to do future editions, and their version wound up in bookstores in June of this year. And so I've got the Kickstarter edition was kind of a limited run that sold out, and then it's now in bookstores, and it's super exciting because it's in bookstores worldwide. They have worldwide distribution. So if you're in Australia, you can walk into a bookstore potentially and buy it, or at least order it, and a local distributor in Australia will send it to you or send it to the bookstore. So that's kind of one of my big projects on an ongoing basis, is trying to keep that book selling and then potentially do future versions of that. And the other is I came out with a revision of a book called 6 Centuries of Type and History about printing history. And it's a simple book, nicely bound, and did another Kickstarter for that early this year and sold a bunch of copies and printed a bunch of extra. So that's available from 6cent.info, a very simple website name. And I have plans now for more books in that vein in the future. I think I may wind up doing a book like that every year or so. Some will be revisions of old work or collections, and some will be new works. But people I find it resonates with people. A lot of people have background in graphic design or printing. They took a class in college. Their grandfather, grandmother worked at a newspaper. So I keep having these wonderful connections with people who say like, I haven't seen anybody talk about this subject for a while because it's a little antiquated. And there's a lot of very specialized books that I read and use as part of my research to write my more general books. So that's been kind of a delight to find that there's a whole different audience, many of whom know me from the tech side or think, oh yeah, aren't you the guy? I'll get this like, wait, aren't you the Glenn Fleishman who also wrote Take Control of Blah? I'm like, yep, that's the same person. I'm also writing a book about 18th century printing history. Thank you very much. So that's been really fun. And I appreciate everyone's buying those books because it lets me do something I really love. And I hope put some new information out in the world as well.
Earlier in the conversation, you've mentioned BlueSky a couple times. Is that your primary social network?
Yeah, I still am on Mastodon. I feel like conversations have slowed down there a bit, but I'm on BlueSky at just GLENNF. If you search on that, you'll find me. Over at Mastodon, I moved over to the incomparable podcast network server, which is Zeppelins.flight. I have to remember now. It's you can find me there easily. Zeppelin.flights is our server. So I'm Glenn F at Zeppelin.flights on or is it at Glenn F at Zeppelin.flights on Mastodon. But I really like the conversation. I find is sort of more technical and artistic, at least in the way that I follow people on Mastodon. And on BlueSky, it's more political than I can handle many days, but also more specialized. So there's a lot of book historians and designers and technologists and tech reporters over there. I feel like Mastodon didn't attract the tech reporters as much. And so if I want to talk to peers or we're talking about, sort of technical topics that are technology news topics of the day, I find them more at BlueSky, and technology and technical topics more at Mastodon. So I like to keep my foot in both sides.
That's what I think is so interesting about talking to you is you have this very definite sense of history and where things came from. And if you don't know, you go and find out and then write a book about it. And yet you also have the other foot in the cutting edge, especially in the Apple world of what's happening and trying to educate us there. So you try to drag us into both worlds. And I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll take a lesson from my friend Tom Standage, who's a deputy editor at The Economist, and I used to write there regularly for him. And he has this habit of writing a book every few years. It's where you find that everything old is new again. So he wrote one of his early books is The Victorian Internet, and it's how the telegraph and the internet, holy cow, the way that telegraph operators used the telegraph is so similar to like instant messaging. It was amazing. Or writing on the wall, which was about I think 2 millennia of social networking and how the Romans and scribes used to like pass notes around like they were tweeting, and just this stuff where you're like, how do we not invent something new? We think we've invented something that only modern digital technology and the internet allow, and you find the same pattern. So I model myself a bit after him in terms of trying to find these things where you think either it's something totally, one level it's totally unexplored. He wrote a good book about the discovery of Neptune, for instance, too. Something where you don't understand how we got from there to here. And the other is how what we're doing now. My classic example is I found this wonderful book from the 1940s about advertising production standards at the New York Times. Very exciting topic, right, for me. But the thing about it is it told me everything about how newspapers were produced because the person who wrote it was directing it at people preparing ads for the New York Times who needed to know all the standards that they use to produce ads well. And that was a huge industry in the 40s, right? It's less now, obviously, but there are all sorts of people involved in advertising production. And it's a snapshot into the state of the art at the time. Well, one of the things in the book notes how many tons of lead were used and then melted and reused each edition and each day and each weekend. And one of the most remarkable things is because their processes were so rapid in the 1940s, they could set a new story, have it laid out on a page and then turned into a mold in about 15 minutes, goes on press. 15 minutes later, it's in Times Square. It could be 30 minutes from that story being typeset to being in a newspaper you could buy in Times Square in 1940s. And we think, well, blogs are really fast. I'm like, I don't know. That's pretty fast. Like it's not a million blogs. It's one newspaper. but it's still, I would never have guessed that the turnaround time was that quick. So I love finding those facts out because it tells you that we're fundamentally the same kinds of creatures. We're just expressing ourselves with a greater variety and larger quantities.
Okay, folks. So those are the kind of things you'll get if you read any of Glenn's books.
Yes.
And that's fascinating. It really is. I would have guessed 12 hours, 14 maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. But they put out, some
minutes?
newspapers put out 10 different editions a day. The Chicago Tribune would put out a super early one, and they'd put it in trucks because the trucks had to drive hours and hours out to the hinterland to deliver the first edition. So they'd have one edition early in the morning, and they would revise those pages 10 or 9 times during the day. Some papers even today do 2 or 3 editions across the day, and most of the stories are the same, but the front page, front of sports, some other stuff will change. It's just, today it seems trivial. Well, we just print a new plate from a digital file and you throw it on the press, and there's 2 people, hitting buttons, running the whole thing. Back in the day, it was, 700 people in a newspaper plant handling lead. But it turns out the speed was not that much different because the profit margins were huge. There was so much money and they were so dang efficient.
Wow. All right. Well, folks, I'm going to have links to Take Control books in the show notes. I'm going to have links to Glenn's other books. I'm going to have any other links I can find because this man is so prolific and so widespread, and it's always a pleasure to talk. Glenn, thank you so much for the time. We will do this again soon.
Gosh, such a pleasure to be back on. Nice to talk to you, Chuck.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We'll be back with more soon. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.